What are we whispering about?
Today we ask you sit quietly still and give us this moment in love, if you will, for this is the way to connect with the Fae. We live in that place of peace in your heart, in the beauty and stillness of which we all are a part. In the magic we weave, we can all then conceive and rejoice in the gladness and in love receive. The magic we share in love, if you dare, is woven in fabrics of shimmering fair. We beckon to you to answer the call, for together in love, where we go one, we go all.
In the air, by the sea, from the land, and within you and me. Fairies are whispering. Have you been coloured, confused, completely captivated, and craving clarity? This is Claire Casely, and I am a fairy whisperer. To catch a whisper, you have to listen closely. Listen with me. Hello and welcome. How are you? Before I introduce my guest for the episode, some news about the podcast. Long-time listeners might have noticed that some of the episodes have changed. I've been working behind the scenes updating old episodes to my new format and improving the quality of the audio. I've taken down some of the episodes as well. Those episodes will come back in a new and improved form. I also have a wonderful new introduction which was originally created by Jim of Fascinating Fae, and I've now tweaked this and updated it and brought more elements in and made sort of changes, added my signature to it. I hope you enjoy that. I really enjoy putting this podcast together. I have other things that are going on in the background in my personal life at the moment that may mean that episodes won't be as frequent for the time being. I've got a whole backlog of wonderful guests that I've been recording over the summer to get out to you, but bear with me if the frequency of those episodes are less in the coming weeks. My guest for this episode originally appeared on Fascinating Fae with host Jim White. I was intrigued by Danielle's artwork. She creates these amazing fairy dolls and they have a real powerful presence, and I know when she guested on Fascinating Fae with Jim, there were some strange things happening. His glasses were knocked off of the table of their own accord whilst he was speaking with her. As an artist, I was interested in speaking to her because I channel my connection to fairies through my artwork too. And I've got another artist coming up soon who has created a whole project around fairy archaeology and connection to landscape. It was an amazing chat with Danielle. She's very inspired by Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and I love the franchise of those films. So I've brought some elements of that into this episode. Thank you for listening. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you, and I'm so happy to be here. They've been waiting to get out there and say hello to everybody. Yes, I'm an artist and a channel for the Nature Spirit Kingdom, and that came quite clear to me probably, 15, 20 years ago, but like feverishly lately. It's really ramped up, right? And I started doing my artwork. I started with a Father Christmas doll, and I'm a self-taught sculptor. It was kind of like learning as I went, and I've gotten better, over the years, and with how how they stand and the wire, the armature and all of that stuff. It's been quite a go with that. I think I probably first real cognitive awareness that I had about them coming to me was in North Idaho when I was living on a horse ranch, and I was doing an offering out in the woods. And I lived on Lone Mountain Trail, and the road that I lived on was a dead-end road, and it dead-ended into this Lone Mountain that just kind of sat out in the middle of this flat. So anyway, I was doing this offering, and off to my right, out of my periphery, I could see this being, and it was like, oh, well, aren't you an interesting little fella? I was really surprised. It wasn't something that I didn't know. I was doing an offering, but it wasn't directed at that. It was just an offering to the earth, right? And just being thankful. And he showed up, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And I kind of kept doing what I was doing and went on my way, and that night went to sleep, and had a dream, and he came to me in a dream, and he told me his name. And I wished I had woken up, right, and wrote it down, but of course, I didn't. And so so it kind of really started there. And then I moved back to California, and then had another walk. I was walking through the woods back behind my house, and I kept getting pulled back to this one spot. And it happens to me with the nature spirits, and it actually happens to me with the bears. They have it just like this magnetic thing with me. So, but at any rate, so I kind of wandered back to that one spot after it happened about 3 different times. And I was like, okay, all right, well. So I went home, and I started creating this doll, and he turned out to look like Gandalf. And it wasn't something that I did on purpose. It was just when I go into the channeling mode, it's like I'll start to do the clay, and they'll show me the color of their eyes, it's like blue or green or gray or silver or gold or whatever. And then the shape of their nose, and their ears, and if they're pointed up, they're pointed down, if they're big or small, whatever. I don't know what they're going to look like until I'm finished with them and sit back and look at them. And then I'm like, oh, aren't you just the coolest thing? So I got done with this doll, and I sat back and looked at him, and he looked just like Gandalf. And I was just floored. I was like, okay. Huh. And so I didn't like, I mean, this was a slow process for me. It was like they were coming to me, but I wasn't totally cognizant of what was really going on, because this happened back in probably almost 20 years ago. And so I went to work as, at the fire lookout, and there were 3 more that came through, and they were out of the deep canyon. There was an area called a deep canyon. And so I created them. And then, and so it's just been kind of like a progressive thing. And then I moved back up to North Idaho again, and was sitting in front of the fire watching The Hobbit, because I'm a huge fan of Tolkien. And he's like a brother from another mother. It's so right. And so I just said I never said that before, but it just gave me goosebumps. So anyway, I was sitting there watching The Hobbit in front of this. I had this really big, huge stone fireplace, and I had my dog and my cat and my laptop in front of me, and I was working clay, and they were starting to come in a little bit more. This was back in like 2015, and this energy came in behind me, and I was like sitting there, and I was floored, because his energy was so noble, is regal, this regal, noble, powerful, just, it's like I can't find the words to, sometimes for these guys. And I was like, had I not been sitting, I might have been on my knees. So I created him. He felt like the Lord of all the Elven ones. He was like the man, right? And in fact, in getting ready for this, well, in fact, a few days before I was on with Jim and with Fascinating Fae, I could feel his energy, like pulling at me. And he's in a cabinet off in the dining room. And so I went and grabbed him, and I had him on the side table for quite a while. And the other day, while I'm gearing up for this, a channeling came through. And I don't know if you read the blog that I posted on your page, but I created a blog for my website, and he came through and in the telling of the story, it brought tears to my eyes, right? Because it was like, taking me back to that moment when he showed up and being in his energy, and just, it was like, I felt so blessed, and I was so honored that would happen. Anyway, so I started writing and channeling, because I've had, of course, more dolls come through, and I had one. I went to Alaska last year and picked up a little gnome up there, and when I went to Alaska, I was working at an art gallery. And it was a port of call, because I've so wanted to get them out into the world, right? And this man actually found me on Alignable, I think it was, and it was my artwork that attracted him. And he contacted me and asked me if I wanted to come work at his gallery up in Alaska. And I was like, oh gee, let me think, because I'm like a mountain girl. You're gonna you want me to come to Alaska? Yeah. Right. So anyway, I went up there, and I took some of my dolls with me, and set them up. And it's so fascinating to me, because it's like, I know when people connect to them, I can feel the connection, and it's so powerful, right? When it happens, it's so powerful. And then I just want to sit back and watch, I just want to observe and see how what the interaction is. And so it happened quite a lot up there. with this one particular doll, and it's quite a character. He actually won me the division championship in the state fair up there. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I know. I was like, I felt it when he got his ribbon. I wasn't there. I was in the gallery, and I felt it when the ribbon was laid, and I was like, yes, he got one. Didn't know what it was, and then I went and saw it, and I was like, oh my God. So it was pretty exciting. But anyway, so I can feel it when people connect to them. And then, in fact, when Jim connects to them, it's like, it's off the chart. I can feel, I can feel his energy, just like, I can feel him looking at them and whatnot. So at any rate, I don't know if you want me to read the blog that I wrote from this high elf.
Yes, I'd like to do that.
Because it actually really, like, it puts you there, and then it explains actually what's really going on with my artwork, because I didn't actually really realize what I was doing, really what I was doing up until, probably the last few years. Like, it's like becoming evident. And so anyway, so this is how it goes. I say it is my hope in telling this story that I can put you there, and that this is one of many experiences I've had and continue to have, and it brought tears to my eyes in the telling of it. These visitations are powerful in their own right, and the key to an experiential experience is to take a moment to quiet yourself and put your attention into your heart while reading this, and allow the rest of it to unfold. Maybe light a candle, take a deep breath, and then begin to read. Imagine, if you will, a still, quiet evening in a cabin deep in the woods, surrounded by big trees with a large stone fireplace, and within it a glowing fire. There inside, sitting before it with her dog and cat at her feet, is an artist that can make clay into fae. She has a small table before her, and on it her laptop. She's watching The Hobbit. Clay in her hands, when out of nowhere, he doth appear, a mighty being of light with big pointy ears. His presence made known, his nobility, his grace. She bows without question and looks into his face. She asks, what is your question? What is your need? I am at your service. Her heart says, take heed. Like, makes me want to cry. Softly he nods. Oh, sorry.
Imagine, if you will, a still, quiet evening in a cabin deep in the woods, surrounded by big trees with a large stone fireplace, and within it a glowing fire. There inside, sitting before it with her dog and cat at her feet, is an artist that can make clay into fae. She has a small table before her, and on it her laptop. She's watching The Hobbit. Clay in her hands, when out of nowhere he doth appear, a mighty being of light with big pointy ears. His presence made known, his nobility, his grace. She bows without question, then looks into his face. She asks, what is your question? What is your need? I am at your service. Her heart says, take heed. Softly he nods, and he says to her, greetings, dear one. I give you a task. This of you is what I might ask. It is to you that we do appear, that you make well it known, and that we are near. We ask it of you to reach out to the many, to weave back the magic that has been lost through the centuries. We exist in your dolls to help spread the word to all who would listen, and that we would be heard. So for those of you listening and open to hear, we beckon to you, open your heart and come meet us there. For that's where we live, and it's from there that we give, leaving back all the magic so that we can all joyfully live. We wish you many blessings as you go walk down your path, rediscovering the magic and the mystery you carry. We look forward to connecting as you go within to weave back the magic. Now let us begin.
I was like, oh boy, that was powerful. And it just so moved me. And it obviously still does, and I created him like 9 years ago. 9 years ago. So that happened 9 years ago. And so I've since created a website and, gotten, and I'm still working on it. It grows all the time when I can get things downloaded and uploaded and when the internet here is going well, then I can get things uploaded and get things changed around and added to and all of that. So, but yeah, so it's been so interesting because it's like I do sell them to those that, connect with them. I don't have not a lot of them have gone out. And in the past, it's kind of frustrated me because it's like, what is going on here? Why is it like, why aren't these guys going? And of course, then I had somebody up in North Idaho, a man that had a store. It was called 0 Point. And he made a suggestion, to like create ceremony, like type scenes with them, right? And I was like working 2 jobs up there at that point in time, and I was super busy, and it didn't like really sink in because I was too busy trying to, I was working. Anyway, and then this other gal that I knew up there, she said something about creating a ceremony, and I had moved back here, living with my sister. And there's an area down in the bottom of the yard where it flattens out. And so I created this scene with all of them and put candles down there and put the golden one in the middle and created this whole scene. And it's called the Circle of Light. And it was so fascinating to me because I took all these pictures, right? I've got a ton of pictures of it. And then I put it to canvas, like I said earlier, and then and it was like, for some reason it was like I got all of this black leather scrap stuff from this old upholstery guy, like way long time ago, like 2004, and I've been packing that stuff around for 20 years, it's like all these years, and not really used it too much. But it was like I felt like I needed to put some pieces of that around the corners of that photograph. So I did, and then I stood back and looked at it and I was like, oh my God, that's a portal. Mm-hmm. And so I hung it, and made it my headboard. And I actually, this kind of goes hand in hand with that one of your recent podcast with the geometric forms. Right? Because when he talked about that, I was like, yes, this is so cool. Because I had my first experience with that was, I was kind of going to sleep and I was in that in-between state, and I went into that. And I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. And what was happening was in that, I was directing my energy from my solar plexus, from my 3rd chakra, right? And I was directing my energy, and as I was actually flying, I was like, I was flying. And I was like, this is really interesting. So while I was doing that, my thought process went to, I wonder if I go into my head, if I can keep doing this. Right. So I moved my, I moved my thought into my head and I started to come down. And then I thought, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. And went back into, my gut. And so I did that. And then I came out of that and opened my eyes, and there was this geometric form like floating above me, just doing this, and I was like, wow, that's fascinating, right? Really fascinating. And this happened, and I think it was like 2018. And then it happened again. I went into it again, and then I was in that in-between state, and I literally opened my eyes in my room, and it was flooded with all of these geometric forms. They were everywhere. And I was like, holy smokes, right? So fascinating that you guys talked about that before we came on, and, we're talking about it now.
Right. Can I just ask about that? I'm intrigued. Yeah, I'm intrigued by what you saw and the colours, and was it just...
There weren't really any colors.
Mm.
It was like black and white, kind of. It was black and white. There were no colors. And, it was like the background was black, and the forms were white, right? Light.
Mm.
And so it was like, it's like hard for me to explain what they looked like. All I know is that they were a geometric form. It was like a triangle type, like connected. And because they were everywhere, I couldn't define one single one, right? I was just like going, whoa, wow.
Did you know what time in the night this happened? Was it in the early hours of the morning, Danielle, or?
That's hard for me to say because I worked night shift, and so it was dark. So it had to be, sometime in the evening. It might have been on a weekend, or maybe it even after, because I broke my foot at work, and so I was off for a year. So it might have been in that time that it probably, I don't remember exactly, but I was sleeping at night at that point. So I have to say that because it was dark in my room. Mm-hmm. And so, that night shift was killer.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have friends that work night shifts. I know it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so...
it is.
Did you see this as a portal connected to your headboard that you had? Do you think it was like symbolizing this portal?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because when I the second time it happened, it was really kind of funny because the first time it happened, I just went into it, right? The second time it happened, it's like I went in, it was like my energy went in, bounced off of it, went in, bounced off of it, went in, bounced off of it, and then went in, right? So on the fourth try, that's probably key. Not sure what that means, but note that because it's probably significant somewhere. It's like on the fourth try, I went, it happened. And so that's when I opened my eyes, and boy, it was like, huh. So yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I was just wondering whether you'd stepped into that realm that you've created, that you've channeled, whether you've stepped into the realm with these beings that you've channeled through these experiences. So you're bringing them forward, and are you stepping back into that place where they come from?
No, because I think that for me that whole circle of light thing and that whole portal was a teaching about being present, fully present, and in your heart, right? Not in your head. You got to get out of your head and allow your heart and your gut to guide you. And so I think that's the significance of that whole thing, because I haven't really gone in and, spent a lot of time in that since then. I've not had any experiences with that, and not that I've put a lot of energy into it. I moved into this house, and when I walked in, I went into the yard, and this is where I did the canvas and all of that there, and created the portal. I moved into this house, and I walked into the yard, and I could feel all the nature spirits come up on me. It was like a rush, right? And I was just standing there smiling, because there was like 2 or 3 of us there, and we were going to split wood or something. And I knew I was the only one that was aware of it. I knew I was the only one feeling it. And so I was just kind of standing there grinning and thinking, boy, you guys are really missing out, because the guys are so cool. And then after that, I had a dream where this woman she was in my dream, and she said, she was looking at my artwork, and she's looking at the dolls, and she's like, I like the ones with the big hats. And I was like, oh, I don't have any with big hats. So I guess I'm gonna make them. So I did, and I made there's almost 20 of them. So it was called the Big Hat Tribe. So yeah, and they're just these little guys, the little guys, and they're on the website too, so you can see them. And so I created them, and then I moved. What did I do? Oh, I actually moved to Southern California to watch my grandkids. My grandson was born. Didn't think I'd ever be a grandma, and my son surprised me. He's like in his 40s, and God bless him, he had my grandson, and I was like, I'm there. I'm a mountain girl, but okay, I'll move down there, because Southern California is just this place of so busy and not a lot of nature around, right? It's just concrete jungle. But I'm like, I'll do it for him, because I felt him on Mount Shasta, a year after my son started seeing this girl. So I was on Mount Shasta, and my son had been seeing this girl for about a year, and his now wife. And I felt Jameson come in, and I was like, huh? So I texted my son, and I'm like, are you guys pregnant? And he's like, no. No. So anyway, 3 years later, and they got married, and had that beautiful boy. And so I said, yeah, I'm coming. I'm gonna, what a gift he is, right? So I spent a couple of years down there. Oh, it was the loveliest thing, because my son would wake up in the morning, and Jameson would still be sleeping, and he was about a year old. He was a year old because Mom went back to work, and he would bring him into me and hand him off, right? And I'd put him next to me, and we'd wake up together 3 mornings a week, right? It was beautiful. It was so much fun. I felt so blessed, right? And me and him are super connected. So, and I have a Native American drum. I had 2 of them, one with elk hide and one with buffalo hide. And he'd wake up, and I'd pull those drums up on the bed, and I'd give him the stick and just let him pound away on those. So today he's gonna be gonna be 5, and he's got a drum set, and he is just a maniac on that.
Wow! Oh, happy birthday to your grandson.
He'll be 5 in September. Yeah. So yeah, he is. He's like, yeah, in September. And then I have a granddaughter too. Surprised all of us because I didn't see that one coming. I felt him coming long before he did. And then this one, she just surprised us all. So they're both super, just beautiful little kids. But it was like I couldn't deal with being, I was thinking about like moving down there permanently to be close to them. And I had a dream. And I was like standing on this deck, and I was looking at this wall of ivy, and there were mermaid scales in it. And I thought, never had a thing about mermaids, but okay. So I'm like, oh, okay. Walk over to it, and I started to, to go and like kind of touch them or whatever. And in the middle of all of that, this bear comes crawling up over the railing. This bear comes crawling up over the railing, and he sits in a chair like you're sitting in your chair across from me, and looks to me and at me, and he says in English, "Are you a mountain girl or are you a water girl?" Oh, wow. I was like, I'm so chills. Yeah, I know. So yeah, so I'm back in the woods. And so after I came back from there, I was sitting out on the deck here, looking down on that area where I'd created that scene, the circle of light scene. And there's a bunch of, there's something going on with granite, the granite rock, right?
Yeah.
Right? There's something going on with that. Don't know what it is, but there is. And it's all over here. And so up off to the left of it, that scene where I did that circle of light, there's this big granite rock. And so I looked down on that, and I was just kind of like just checking out the yard, not doing anything special, just kind of hanging out. And I looked at that spot, and I saw myself. This is so bizarre. I saw myself going underneath that rock on my back, feet first. And I was like, what? What was that about? Right? And so I went down there. I got up and I walked down there, and the magic coming out from underneath that was like off the chart. So 4 dolls came out of there, 4 of them. And it was like right after that is when that man contacted me to go to Alaska. So it was like boom, 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 right? And yeah, so
I'm just getting chills up and down my spine when you were talking about that. So I live near Dartmoor,
right?
Where I live is, so I live in Devon, and then there's Cornwall, and it's just like a huge lump of granite under the ground here. So Dartmoor, which is only a few miles from me, is just sat on a big sort of island of granite, and there's so much paranormal activity in this part of the world. Stories about pixies and ghosts,
right?
You name it. So like it's definitely something to do with the conductivity of granite, because it's full of crystals, isn't it? It's full of quartz as well. So
right,
yeah, maybe something to do with that, but also obviously the earth elementals that live within the earth and stuff. Yeah.
That's interesting, because this guy here, this is one of the ones. He came out of
Oh, look at him. Wow.
he came out. He's right. He's one of the ones that came out from under the rock, and he wanted this gold tip finger, and he just wrote a story about him too. And I was going through a book that I have that was written by the Silver Elves, and it's like their Elven language. And when I go through the book, because I'm looking for names for them, and I can feel, it's like I just feel the frequency of it.
Mm.
His name means stone wizard. Stone wizard.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
right?
What's the name in Elven? It doesn't matter if you don't have it. Nah.
I do have it. I just have to reach for it. It's Azalea. It's Ahzahlee, or that's how you pronounce it, or Azalea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what vibed with him. And here's the other thing. My sister and I had gone to the grocery store, and we were driving back on Highway 49. And this is the gold country, this area that we live in.
Mm.
Highway 49 is the gold country. And I mean, it's like gold was discovered in California,
Yeah.
right? So this is where I'm at. So we're driving down Highway 49, and it was in the spring, and it was beautiful and green, because now everything's dry and yellow, and it's not so pretty, but it was beautiful and green. And I'm driving, and I'm going like 60 miles an hour, right? And all of a sudden, off to the right, I'm like, my attention goes off to the right, and I'm looking at this spot, and it's like rolling hills, oak trees, and all these granite rocks. And there was this just huge, like gathering of granite rocks, and some of them were spired and tall, right? And some of them were not, but it's like that. Just this one's giving me chills because the energy that I picked up when I drove past that and looked at it, it felt like Stonehenge. It was like this Stonehenge kind of energy, and it's like that gives me goosebumps too, right? And so I come home, and I created this doll who had ears out to here. And I'll tell you, that night I went to try to go to sleep. I was just going to go to bed and go to sleep. And man, oh man, there was just no, you're not going to sleep until because I didn't have any clay at the time. I was totally out of clay. And it was like, no, you got to at least get me down on paper. So I drew his face, and then I got to go to bed. Then I got to go to sleep. So I drew his face, and then, I ordered clay and got the clay, and I created him. And so this is who came out of that.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Say hello, Claire.
I've got a drawing that I have to show you at some point, because it reminds me of a being that came through for me.
Oh, how cool.
In the 1990s, yeah. And then so there's a couple of things I just want to say, Danielle, that have just been like aha moments for me talking with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you showed me that doll, the one with the elfin name, the stone
wizard,
stone
right?
Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pointing,
right?
So the pixie that came through for me that turned up in one of my pictures in 2016, he was pointing. And seems to be a thing that these beings do to draw attention to things, because then one of my other guests, Jen, who spoke about the nature spirits in her garden. She was on Jin's show recently.
All right.
She had a photograph from her garden of a pixie who's pointing. So in your sort of thoughts about and when you're channeling these beings and the fact he's pointing, what do you think he's drawing your attention to or our attention to? Because they're trying to tell us something, I think.
Well, it's funny because I do have a bunch of pictures of them. I took them, and once I got them all created, I took them down to that spot. And I have this grapevine, because we're in the wine country here, and there's some really, the old grape, plant, the trees, the grape trees or whatever, because I don't know what to call them. They're really gnarly. And I thought, gosh, just so wished I had a bunch of that because it would be so cool to have. And I was driving down the road one day and this vineyard was pulling up all their grapevines and just piling them up, and they were going to burn them. And my truck, I pulled in there and I said, hey, can I grab a, truckload of that? And they said, yeah, sure. So I grabbed a bunch of it and put it around. I put it all around the top of that and around the side of it. And then I put them, and it was so interesting because I didn't have to flatten out a bunch of spots to put them. It was like they just fit in these different spots and they just stood there. And he's almost like he's pointing the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pointing the way. And so I have pictures of them like that, and then I created those red-capped mushrooms, and I put a bunch of those down there and took more pictures of them down there with that. And then because that just felt like the thing to do, and then this Gandalf doll that I have, this wizard, the one with the big white beard behind me, I put him down there and next to them. And then I have these dwarves, and two dwarves and a leprechaun that I took a bunch of pictures with them, walking up. So it's like you can see the back of them, and these guys coming out of that, and the wizard standing over here to the side. And I just channeled a bunch of story about that. And then I took them down into this other area and took those mushrooms and put them in a circle, and there was a whole nother deal created. So, I think that, that, because I don't necessarily know what they mean it's like I just create what what they're showing me. So him pointing and then putting that gold on his tip of his finger, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And right.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what I'm doing, but I did it. Mm-hmm. So it's like he's pointing the way. So I don't know. That's all that comes to me, and that's all that comes to mind is that he's pointing the way.
Mm.
The way.
That way.
Okay. Right?
Yeah.
That way.
So do you feel that in your thoughts and interactions with nature spirits, do you feel that they're trying to show us something specifically?
Yeah, they're here. Yeah, for sure. I'm like, like in that blog that, that story that the Elven one, his comment, in his story is, we're here, and we live in your dolls to show people we're here. And for those people that are open to them, they see it immediately. And she came out too, and so did this one, right? So there's a family. So there's a family of them, and then this old gnarly gnome, because these guys make me think of, it's like all they wanted to be was in brown, right? So and then I looked up brownies because I don't necessarily know all of the, terminology and all of that for them. And I looked them up, and it was like big ears, it's just like they have huge ears. And then so this guy came with them. Oh, I can feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, love him. He's great.
He's old. He's been around for a long time. And that's what I saw. I saw this old bent over hunched guy with this long beard that touches the ground, right? So that's some pretty cool pictures of him.
He reminds me of pixies. The pixies.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah?
The ones that I saw, the one that I saw was very bent over and gnarly, and he was holding a wand and staff, but he had that bent over, kind of aged look about him. Yeah. With the big ears.
He's got one. He's got one.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's him.
Oh, yeah. I was started to tell you that I posted that one doll. I think it was on Brian Froud's page. I don't know if it was Brian Froud or somebody's page. It was some page. But it's like, so they get like 10, 20, 30 likes. This guy came in at, it was over 3,000, almost 4,000 likes. I don't know how many shares. And the comments were just like everywhere. And it just went, it was like he just took off. And then I did the female, and she went to over 5. And I was like, holy smokes, right? And I did the one with the beard, the old one, and he scored pretty high too. And then there's one right now that I posted that actually surprised me. I can't think of, this guy here, this last one. Like, this is the most recent one. I just made him.
He's great.
He's got, the last time I looked was like 5.6. He's gone like totally viral. 5.6.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love his eyes. He's got those dark, shiny eyes that I've seen on fairies. Yeah. Very black, shiny eyes. He's got a real presence to him. Like he's looking right into me. Yeah, like right into my soul. What?
Yeah, they kind of do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you make all the clouds as well. They're amazing. So, Danielle, did you have a connection with nature spirits as a child? Is this like something that's happened more recently in your life, or is it something that goes way back to your childhood? This connection.
Well, that's a good question. I was a nature kid, and I don't remember a lot of my being little. But the time that I do, and I spent most of my time outside.
Mm.
So I'm sure they were, and it was, but I wasn't conscious of it. And if I was, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So, he just I just love this guy. But it's like every time I make one, I look at him and go, I just love this guy. And then comes another one, and then I just love this guy. That's so funny. But I don't know. I've always been super, super connected to nature. Always been super connected to nature, and so you couldn't get me out of it. And so it kind of stands to reason, right? But I didn't know that I could sculpt, and I didn't know that I could do what I'm doing. Well, I could sculpt until the late 80s, early 90s. I didn't know. I got really sick, and I was a school bus driver at the time. I got really sick, and I had to find something to do sitting down because I couldn't breathe, right? I had asthma really bad. And so I had to find something to keep me busy. And so this is the gift that came from out of that.
Mm.
And so I started to teach myself how to sculpt. And there was no internet back then. There was no computers back then. There was nothing that I could look at. So I just did what I could.
Mm.
And it was like trial and error. And yeah, it was crazy. But so obviously it's evolved. Yeah, it's like I know when there's a rattlesnake around. I can feel it. It's like if I'm walking and there's one there, it's like it was almost like there's a barrier there that kind of pushes me away from it, right?
Mm.
So I'm like real sensitive to nature. The bears, they pull on me. They're like magnets too. They'll pull on me. And in fact, I had a raccoon the other night. I was sitting in here, and I kept hearing this noise. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? It was like this. And I'm like, what? And I thought, is it the TV? Is it the computer? I'm like, listening to my computer. I'm like, what is that? Finally, I got up and went outside, and there was this little raccoon, and he was up the tree. And he was holding on to it, going like this.
Oh.
So, they're so funny, right? They're just so funny. Yeah, so I don't know. I've just always been connected to nature, and like like you, right? I was going to ask you something about the trees, because it's like sometimes I can walk out in the woods, or just go out and be out in nature, and if I'm like kind of bothered by something, or I'm carrying something that I just kind of need to let go of. Have you ever been like, it's like they'll pull me to them,
Yeah.
and then I'll go stand next to them and like back to them, and then they just pull it all off of you? Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, I have. They've comforted me many times, especially when I've been going through difficult times. I would go to the woods. I would go to the trees, especially during, the COVID pandemic, the lockdown, when I couldn't see my family and beloveds.
Yeah.
I went to trees quite a lot, and spoke to them, spent time with them. I even created a space in a woodland that I could go to. I made like a throne to sit on, and I made like chairs in this woodland space, and me and my kids would go there, and just to have that space in nature, and it gave us so much solace. So trees, I'm really thankful for them. There's certain trees I connect with,
right?
Different places I go to. Yeah,
it's funny because this just happened this year. I was in Southern California visiting my son, and daughter-in-law was down there to watch the kids while they went on a little jaunt. They're 4 and 2, right? And I'm like, they're full of energy, and grandma's grandma, grandma's no spring chicken. So, but anyway, so I just adore them. I just adore them. They're so stinking cute. I can't even tell you how stinking cute they are. They are just like so this lady goes, I said, oh my God, they're so cute. And this woman goes, oh, all grandmas think their grandkids are cute. And I said, no, these kids are stinking cute. They are really cute. So anyway, they have a trampoline out in the backyard and a playhouse and all of that. And there was a raised garden bed out there that when I was living down there, I planted squash, and we had a little garden. She had tomatoes going, I had squash and whatnot. So we had this little garden. And Jameson would come out with me And the cherry tomatoes were like just prolific. They were everywhere, and he would pick them. We'd find little green tomatoes everywhere, right? I mean, everywhere. And so this last time I was down there, it was because my daughter was an OR nurse, and she works like crazy hours. And my son owns a business, and he works crazy hours. And they're not gardeners, right? They don't get out in their yard and garden. And so it was a lot of weeds, right? Okay. So there was a lot of weeds out in that raised bed. There was nothing growing but weeds and marigolds. And it was killing me to look at that. It was driving me nuts. And I was like, I got to go out there and pull those weeds. It's driving me crazy, right? So, and then they were everywhere on the other side of that, underneath the trampoline, they were everywhere. And so I went out there, and I'm sitting on the edge of that raised bed, and this my grandson looks at me and he goes, "Grandma, you look so cool sitting in there." And it was like, he's seeing me all lit up, sitting there with my hands in the dirt, right? Because my energy just totally shifts, right? And he can see it. I know he can see it, because it was like, why would he say, "Grandma, you look so cool sitting around a bunch of weeds," right? Pulling them, and my granddaughter sitting there next to me, and we just had a ball. In fact, he's got this little truck, bless his little heart, got this little Flintstone truck thing that's got a little, like trunk to it. And I'm pulling weeds, and he'd come over and he'd pick all the weeds up and he'd throw them in the back of his car. And he'd go over to the garbage can and throw them in the garbage, right? So he made this, like, because Daddy has a business. He has the weed watering business now. That's the weed watering business. I just love it. But that's where we, it's like so before I left, I made sure I had Daddy go and get some squash plants. And we cleared all the weeds out. We planted those squash. And we said, "Now, Jameson, you have to go out and you have to water that every day, right? We'll make sure you take care of that." Because I want the kids to be connected to that, right?
So important.
I have children's books. I have a couple of children's books and children's books that I'm like, I can see coming in, right? That they're in my computer and they need to be printed and published, but they're designed to be held, right? And to get kids back out into nature. And they're actually designed as much for the reader, as they are for the kids, because everybody's so busy with their face and their screens or, gaming and doing stuff. It's like with TV and cartoons, getting kids back out into nature and helping them to connect with nature again, right?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, they never lose that then, because, it's like my kids, I've taken them out into nature since they were really little, and they've never forgotten that, and even now they're going to be 18. I've got twins, they'll be 18 in September. And
wow.
Yeah, so they don't come out with me so much now, but when we do go out, it's like they remember what it's like to play in nature and connect with the trees and all the things that we did together. It comes back to them. So yeah, it's a really important thing to teach children. Yeah.
It is. I'll tell you, I raised my son in the woods. I raised him in the woods, and then God bless him, he moved to Southern California. But when he goes on vacation, a lot of times that's where he'll go back. He goes back to the woods. So bless his heart, He's a very grounded human being, and I'm glad that we got the opportunity to, got the opportunity to do that, because we lived among these massive big cedar trees, and it just, it was just such a blessing. and he got around on his dirt bike and, his friends, but he lived in the woods. And for me, that's just like really important. You just have to remember our connection to nature. You just have to, because it's what we are. We are nature.
Mm.
Our bodies are made of the earth.
I know, exactly. We're not,
So, yeah.
we're not Facebook and social media and
Right.
it's so
Right.
it's so hypnotizing, that whole thing. It's so easy to lose yourself, isn't it? I have to pull myself away. I have to go and walk in nature just to regain my sense of self again and connect with the real magic, because the real magic is in nature, as you know.
Right.
And so many people are rediscovering now through podcasts like this, through fairy artwork, your kind of artwork, fantasy, fiction, Tolkien. All of these things are important for our connection with that realm, aren't they? Before I came on to speak to you tonight, I was having some dinner with my daughter, and she said, Mum, I feel like I want to watch Lord of the Rings again. And I said, that's so strange you said that, Ava, because Danielle, who I'm going to speak to, creates these amazing dolls that are very reminiscent of like Gandalf, and you've just, been speaking about that connection. So, yeah.
I had, and because I just adore the Lord of the Rings. I remember watching the very first Hobbit cartoon that came out when it, back in the 70s. And I remember watching that when I was pretty young, I was like, I don't know, 10, 12, 13, I don't know, whatever. But and I was fascinated by it. So when I was in Southern California, it was the weirdest, most bizarre thing, because I was out in the carport, and the Dunedain from Lord of the Rings, that energy just like showed up, and I was like, really? I'm standing out here in the concrete, going, what are you guys doing here? So I created a whole bunch of dolls around that. And so, and I've actually had a couple of women that I know that are mediums or channels as well. And Tolkien has come through. And so there's a whole story around Legolas that I can tell you at a later date, because that's actually what's happening now with my artwork, and being on these podcasts is connected to that. Because the message was he wanted me to create a Legolas doll, and so I did. And holy smokes, holy smokes. Usually I have to be completely done with the doll before they start to send me energy. I barely got the eyeballs holes dented in the clay, and this one just started. I was just like hit with all this energy, and then I'd gone to sleep that night and woke up with this whole vision. I mean, this huge vision of, well, I don't want to get into it too much, but this massive vision and the energy around it. I was like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And I wrote it down, and I have a journal, and it's old, and the pages look like they're old and aged, right? Mm-hmm. And I wrote it all down, and what's weird and interesting is that I can feel that journal reach out to me sometimes. It's almost like these tendrils of energy just are like reaching out and pulling at me, right? It's like crazy. But I was actually guided to create high needle baskets. And in the creation of these baskets, I got on YouTube, and I started to do that. And
wow. Oh, look at that.
in the weaving of these is part of the weaving of the magic, right? I didn't know. I was just drawn to do that weaving. That's part of the message from that Lord of all the Elven ones, is to weave back the magic, because the energy in these baskets is off the chart.
I can feel that with the spiral as well.
Right. Well, you can't do it without a spiral. It's just how it comes out.
That's so beautiful. And the design, is that a specific kind of traditional design?
Well, it is. I mean, the thread that, like this is, but the spiral, you can't. You can't not. I don't know that you can make them without making a spiral, and I think that's key, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's powerful. I mean, these are powerful. And I didn't realize it until after I, was like making them. And then I was like, in the making of them, from my heart comes the vision from Legolas. It's going into these baskets, and so you can feel it. You can feel it. So there's way more going on in the weaving. And I think this is bringing back, this is like an old Native American thing. The Indians would make their baskets out of pine needles. And, of course, other things.
Up on the shelf behind you, you've got the fire, the log burner behind you. The dog, she's got, is it he or she? She's got white sleeves and a white dress and kind of a greeny brown cloak next to the wizard. This one? That one. Yeah, that one.
This is the Lord of all the Elven.
Oh, wow. Just really, while we've been talking the whole time, I was drawn to him the most. He is great. Look at his face. Oh, I love his eyes. He is amazing. Yeah, he's been looking at me the whole time we've been talking and sussing me out.
And it's funny because, and I could feel that. I could feel that between you guys.
Yeah. He's like, who's this person?
Right. Well, he's the one that wants us to reach the many. He's the one that showed up to me in Idaho in my living room.
Oh, wow.
And brought me to my knees. Right. But the first one that I made, because I just created his face like the other day. I recreated him because the other one, the original one, had a beard, and elves typically don't have beards, right? And so, but at that point in time, it was like back in 2015, I wasn't particularly happy with the way his face turned out. So I covered it with hair and braided it in all this gold thread and just made it look really cool. But it was like just got to get out from underneath all this hair. And so, so I made him, and this is how he came out. The mighty, the mighty being of light with big pointy ears.
Yeah, he's very, yeah. He's definitely got that energy of,
He's definitely got, but he can be very commanding. He's got this commanding type energy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But you can see that, you can see he's got the joy in his eyes as well.
Yeah, he has. He's got that kind of mischievousness as well. A bit of, wise, very wise, mischievous, and yeah, great. Hello. Nice to meet you. I hope I'm doing a good job for the fairies.
Oh my goodness. He's like, so, I think they're just so thankful this is happening. And I think it's time, it's time. It just had to be the right time. Right?
Well, thank you. Thank you for...
Timing's everything.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's been wonderful. Gosh, it's been wonderful talking with you, Danielle, and hearing about your dolls,
Fun.
meeting your dolls. I'm sorry about the technical issues we had to start with. I think that was just the fairies, to be honest.
I would agree. Like, knock it off.
Oh,
not your buddy.
The amount of times that's happened, though, when I've been recording these episodes, and, it's easy, isn't it, to get a bit worried about things, but that's what fairies want to teach us. And I had to keep reminding myself that they just want us to be in that joyful, playful place. And I think they get amused. They're very amused by our worries and concerns, because they're just living in this state of presence, aren't they?
Right.
That's one of the lessons, isn't it, to teach us?
Well, that's part of the message from the four that came out from under the rock, was that, they're here to have fun. This guy's faith. How can you not, like...
What? What's he holding there?
It's on his guitar.
Oh,
I saw this on Facebook. I was like, oh my God, that would be perfect for this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so I got it for him. Look at that face. I mean, he's just so... Yeah. And his ears. These four that came from the ground under that rock, their ears, they point down. So... which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know. I just absolutely love him. But it's like, yeah, you guys, it's like, we're here to be merry. We want to, we want to party with you. We want to have fun. We want you to remember who you are.
Remember.
At your core, right? At your core. Who are you at your core?
And trust the process as well.
Right.
Trust.
Right. Yeah.
I love him. He's great. I'd like to pull a card for you, just as a thank.
Oh,
thank you.
I have an oracle deck too.
Oh,
please do.
Oh yeah. It's called Fairy Magic Message Cards, and the fairies want me to pull a card for you. So, I like this one. Gnome family.
Oh, sweet.
It's like a mum and gnome. Yeah, two little gnomes.
Sweet.
So the earth-themed gnomes remind you that life is filled with abundance on all levels. Magical celebrations will abound, as well as success within the family. Count your blessings. Watch as more abundance rolls into your already blessed life. Thank you, Fairy Realm, for all the gifts bestowed upon me. I am truly grateful.
Amen. That's sweet. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I actually did to create an oracle deck, and it's I did have it available. I've got like quite a few of them.
Oh wow!
Out of the dolls, out of a lot of the dolls, yeah. Yeah. So those are on like there. Well, if you could go to my website, it's naturespiritcreations.com. Yeah. And there's some pictures of them, not all of them. I didn't load them all, but it just gives you a sample, and then I have my stuff for sale on the big cartel site, and that's where I'm. You can get them there, but yeah. So I was actually somebody said, you need to make an oracle deck. And I'm like, okay, I don't have anything else to do. I'll make an oracle deck. And I did that in Southern California. So
Wow.
I spent a long time doing that. And then my son helped me with, some of the, getting them produced.
So you've got your website. Are you on social media? Just for people listening, where people can find you, Danielle.
I'm on the Within Realms on Facebook.
Yeah.
If you type in Nature Spirit Creations, the Within Realms should pop up.
Okay.
Because it's like I started out as Nature Spirit Creations, and then it went to the Within Realms, right? It's like going within. It's like all about going within, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can connect. So I'm on there, and naturespiritcreations.com is my website, which is like, an ongoing, it's just need to be it's being added to all the time. Especially now that they decided that I needed to blog. Have to blog. Never thought I'd be doing that. So I'm doing that too. And then I have, like the Big Hat Tribe, I was guided to make like a children's line, a clothing line, like t-shirts and onesies and stuff out of them. And so I did that, and they're on the Nature Spirit Creations .big cartel site. You can get them there. It's a print on demand site. So, because I don't, it's just easier to do that.
Yeah.
And then actually some of my stuff can be found on Teespring as well under Nature Spirit Creations. A larger array of things. Printful doesn't seem to be able to capture some of the images as well as Teespring. And so on Teespring, you can get like a banner of a dwarf or an elf or a gnome or whatever, and you can put it out in your yard, or you can hang it on your wall or whatever. You can get a t-shirt, sweatshirt. There's different things that you can get, like a notebook with the image of it all on it, that kind of thing. So it's like they've been telling me, you got to get this stuff out. So I'm like, okay.
I can resonate with what you were saying about this stuff coming through, because it does, and fairies work on a higher frequency, don't they, than us? And I have to say sometimes,
right,
that I can't keep up with you guys. Like you were sending this to me, but it's like there's only one of me.
I'm not done with the last thing you asked me to do yet.
The thing that I forget to do, and I have to keep reminding myself to do, is to ask for help, to ask them for help. Because I think we all forget to do that, don't we? It's just to go, okay, I need help with this. Maybe there's, someone that can help with some of those things. It's been wonderful speaking to you, Danielle.
That was fun.
Yeah, it's been so great to have you on, sharing about your artwork and your connection with the nature spirits. Thank you ever so much.
Oh, absolutely. It was my pleasure. It was our pleasure. But, what's interesting is, and you brought up Tolkien, is that back when the Lord of the Rings, when they first came out, like in the early 2000s, they were like 2000. I remember watching the first one in Coeur d'Alene. I was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And when it opened and Cate Blanchett is speaking in Elvish, I was just, it just went right through. It was like I was full of chills. I was sitting by myself. I was crying. I was like, holy crap. Oh man, was this powerful, right? Anyway, I'd gone to see, I think it was the second movie, at the Two Towers, and there was a scene where the elves show up, where Rohan, they're going to get ready to battle the orcs, right? And the elves show up to join in this battle, right? And the elf says, to Aragon, I think it was, there was a time when elves and men fought together, and we are proud to do it again. That, again, went right through me. And I was like, tears. And it was funny because the person that I was watching the movie with, I said, man, it was a powerful scene in that, one that just really moved me. And he goes, and he thought it was one of the romantic scenes, between Aragon and the elf girl, Erwin. And he's like, oh, I know which one you're talking about. I said, I don't think you do. I just don't think you do. And of course he didn't, right? He had no clue. But it was that statement that just moved me like to tears. And so, yeah, it's powerful for me. And Tolkien was a total channel to Middle Earth. He was so tapped in. Yeah.